Welcome to today's Explainer. We are tackling a truly fascinating, massive topic today. We're going to systematically expose the shortfalls and bottlenecks that are currently acting as a huge drag on India's educational framework. Okay, let's dive into this, because figuring out exactly where a system breaks down is absolutely the first step to building it back up. And ultimately, this impacts the entire economy we all live and work in. Here is our roadmap for this teardown. We're going to hit 5 key areas. First, the human capital stakes. Second, facilities and dropouts. Third, unequal accessibility. Fourth, poor quality and relevance. And finally, we'll look at the NEP 2020 response. Let's get right to it. Section 1, the human capital stakes. Before we can really dissect the flaws, we have to understand what's actually at risk here when education falls short. When you hear the word capital, you probably picture, factories, machinery, maybe piles of cash, right? But human capital is a whole different ballgame. The definition we're looking at here calls it this stock of knowledge, ability, skill, and physical capacity of the people at a specific point in time. This isn't just a fancy economic term. It is literally the raw potential of a nation. It's the ultimate engine driving economic growth. Think of it kind of like a massive upgrade to a computer's operating system. In a perfect world, investing in education upgrades a workforce. It allows people to absorb complex, new techniques and radically boost their efficiency. And this brilliantly illustrates how skilled workers add directly to a nation's productive capacity. They adapt, they innovate, and they produce more. That is how education is supposed to work. So that brings us to the big question. If that's the ideal, where exactly is the Indian educational framework currently hitting a wall? That takes us into Section 2, inadequate facilities and high dropouts. Because despite some massive expansions in recent years, the foundation of the system is showing some pretty severe cracks. Before we look at the numbers, let's make sure we're on the exact same page. The dropout rate is defined simply as the percentage of children who leave schools at different levels. So we're not just talking about kids who never enroll in the first place, we're talking about losing students midway through their journey, literally stopping human capital formation right in its tracks. So, the crucial point is this. Despite a large expansion, the physical and societal infrastructure is falling desperately short of what the nation actually needs. We're looking at 3 stark realities here. First, basic educational facilities just aren't keeping up. Second, and this is a heavy one, there is persistently high illiteracy, specifically among scheduled castes and scheduled tribes. And third, compounding all of that, the dropout rates across various levels are severely high. The system is struggling to physically accommodate and retain its most vulnerable populations. But let's play devil's advocate for a second. Let's assume a student doesn't drop out. Let's assume the facility is fully built and ready. We still have to ask, is the playing field actually equal for everyone walking through those school doors? Which leaves us to Section 3, unequal accessibility and gender bias. Because, as we'll see, just having a school doesn't mean everyone gets to benefit from it equally. Now, what's really interesting and frankly staggering about this data is the sheer contrast. Female education severely lags behind male education due to a deeply ingrained gender bias. We are looking at an objective, systemic bottleneck, where a massive portion of the population faces closed doors and unequal accessibility right from day one. Okay, so what about the students who manage to overcome those massive hurdles? The ones who get the access and stay in their seats, are they actually learning what the country needs them to learn? That brings us to Section 4. Poor quality and irrelevant content. Because mere attendance doesn't magically create valuable human capital if the curriculum itself is fundamentally flawed. There is a massive glaring mismatch happening right now. The current system places an excessive emphasis on general education. Now, general knowledge is great for trivia, but it's maybe a bit less helpful when you're actually on a factory floor or trying to build modern infrastructure. What a rapidly developing economy desperately needs is practical, technical, and vocational training. The content being delivered is just fundamentally out of sync with what the economy requires. And because the content is missing the mark, this subpar academic quality limits the true potential of India's human capital. If you're training a workforce mostly in generalities rather than hard, practical skills, you're creating a massive bottleneck for the entire economy. It means slower growth, and it completely fails to raise that labor efficiency we were talking about at the very beginning of this explainer. Finally, we arrive at Section 5, the NEP 2020 response. So, with inadequate facilities, unequal access, and irrelevant content, how exactly is the framework attempting to course correct? Let's see how this builds historically. We had initial policies back in 1968, then 1986, 1992, and then, wow, a massive gap of nearly 3 decades until 2020. I mean, think about how much the global economy transformed in those 30 years. The NEP 2020 is explicitly framed as a response to this completely changed world. And more importantly, it's an acknowledgement of the unfinished education agenda left behind by those older policies. The goals of the NEP 2020 are aimed straight at the bottlenecks we just broke down. We're talking transformational reforms across both school and higher education. And notice the specific focus here, providing quality education with a special emphasis on marginalized and disadvantaged groups. Theoretically, this is the blueprint to tackle those massive equity and quality challenges, like the high SC and ST illiteracy rates and those deep gender biases we exposed earlier. Which leaves us with this final critical thought to ponder. We've seen the raw economic power of human capital, and we've walked through the harsh reality of the infrastructural, accessibility, and quality bottlenecks currently holding it back. The NEP 2020 certainly recognizes these massive challenges on paper, but as we look at the reality on the ground, we have to ask, will this new policy finally be enough to bridge that gap and actually unleash all that human capital potential? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I encourage you to keep questioning how the systems around you really work.